Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? It's Dakanoth here, and today we're playing a game called Clash of Empires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bit of a tutorial slash guide over the game, and I'm hoping that you guys will join me in my new clan called the Dwarves. And this is going to be kind of something that I've been wanting to do, but on like a completely fresh game. Didn't really feel like doing this on any other game. I thought about doing it on Lords, but I don't know, the way things are, I kind of like the way things are. So I thought, okay, well, let's start to a new game, and maybe my subscribers can come join, and we'll all have a little bit of fun, right? Now, this game's pretty similar to Lords, with the exception that there are a couple of major things different about it. So, like, for example, you still have a fort, and then you have these things called resource towers, and you can become a king and all that jazz. And yes, you have resource tiles, and yes, you do have top alliances. All the itty bitty things that you kind of expect in these mobile games, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and give you kind of a. I'm gonna explain the mechanics to you real fast, and then we'll get it down to really the bare minimum of what you need to know. So, what you probably ought to know right from the start is you're not going to have all of this stuff right from the get go. Like, you're going to have to build most of this. Now, if you want my opinion as far as buildings are concerned, you're going to want a lot of. You're going to want to probably start off with 4 of each type and not worry about the military tents straight away. And I'm saying this because from experience, it seems to me like you're going to spend more time farming in this game, at least right outright, than you are going to be then obviously, like here, you can get bagged resources and stuff like that, but you can kind of see why that might not be such a good long-term sustainable practice. So in my opinion, I definitely think you probably should at least start out by actually having more sawmills and farms in the beginning until you can sustain yourself enough that you can eventually swap out to more military tents so you can produce more troops. But basically, what this game does is you can get workmen. All right, so workmen are kind of like, think of them kind of like I don't know. Let me give me a good example of this. So, like, for example, if I have a set number of workmen, they cut down the building time for this particular building, right? But if I want to cut it down to like maybe say only 7, which is the minimum, then I can have just 7 work on that one building, and I can set the remaining workers I have to the other buildings. Now, if you're curious how you get more workmen, you get that through upgrading your castle. And so right from the get-go, I recommend you just spam the requirements that you need to get done for the castle until you get to about castle 10 to 13. Because once you get to 10 to 13, then you can go back here and you can start micromanaging and upgrading all of these buildings and getting them all unlocked. Now, of course, eventually, yes, you can get your hospital upgraded. Yes, you can get your storehouse upgraded. But some different things that I can talk about is the mechanics. So, like, the mechanics of this game are a little interesting, and the fact that basically you have infantry as the front line all the time. So, guards are always in the front line. Okay, and they soak up the damage. So, you need guards in order to be able to defend. You need guards in order to really prevent yourself from getting squished in any kind of battle. So chances are you're going to want quite a few guards, and that's going to make a majority of your front line. Then spearmen are going to counter your cavalry units, so that'll keep your range from getting killed. And in this game, it's interesting because spearmen counter cavalry, but cavalry counters range, and infantry counters, like, I guess nothing. Not really sure, but I know spearmen will counter cavalry. All right. For the range, they're a little interesting because crossbowmen have higher damage and defense. However, archers have higher damage and attackings, and they counter guards. So, I mean, in a way, you use infantry to counter cavalry, I guess, and cavalry counters range, and range counters infantry. A little different dynamic there, but it's just something you have to know. And obviously for cavalry, you do have heavy cavalry, which obviously that counters the range, but then horse archers will do more damage on tiles. So if you're trying to do like, and basically in the case of cavalry and range, it's cavalry are kind of hitting range, and then your horse archers hit on resource tiles and do more damage and charge faster. And so they kind of play different roles. So like cavalry increases march speed, infantry is your tanking, soak up damage, and your spearmen counter the cavalry that are trying to kill your range, and your range do all the damage. So in theory, you're probably going to have to find a balance between having a lot of infantry and a lot of archers if you're attacking, or a lot of guards and a lot of spearmen with a lot of crossbowmen as a constant, dwindling problem. It's basically all three unit types get used pretty frequently. Now, siege in this game do have a use. You just use them for the wall, just like you'd expect. They do have the highest resource holding capacities, so they're often used in gathering. But something else that I can mention is that, like, yes, there are 10 tiers, okay, for this game. And yes, that means the higher the tier you have, the better the unit type, and therefore you'll get easily crushed and easily stepped on if you don't have the higher tier. And so that's why we're in a new kingdom, and we're going to hopefully, within the next 60 days, hopefully we'll be on the top of the top from the get-go. Or at least that's kind of the goal, anyway. Now, of course, I invite you all to come in and join me on here because, again, I think it's going to be kind of fun. I'd like to see if we can maybe run the whole kingdom and see if we can even get a shot at it. I think it'd be kind of cool to see if we can. Now, of course, they do have something called the vendor. And a vendor here, you can actually trade resources for resources or trade gold for speed ups and stuff like that at a discount, which is kind of nice. Gold is kind of hard to get from the get-go, though. I don't recommend spending your gold outright. Like, if anything, you'll probably spend more time saving your gold than you will do anything else. But something else to mention is, like, as far as like upgrading goes, there is the wishing land, and you don't get access to this right away, but eventually you'll get access to it, and here you can actually spend gold for resources, and you can get a little bit back. I'm personally, between like the wishing land and the lucky draw, I don't recommend throwing gold in there because it's, in my opinion, a waste. I've yet to find any really practical use out of it. Like, just like how gyms are in Lords Mobile, I think you want to spend most of your energy saving your gold so that when you need to do upgrades for like things like I don't know. I mean, I'll give you one example where I think it would be practical, and that would be like in building troops. Where I could see where, like, if let's say I speed this up, yeah, it's 1100 gold, but it's also 9 hours, and that's where troop training speeds and stuff like that come in handy. But if you don't have them, then gold's your only other option, really. And so, for that reason, I feel like a vast majority of people are going to find that be the case. Now, you can do a lot of monster hunting in this game, which is kind of convenient. Of course, like the Wheel of Fortune, you can get that through just hitting monsters. So kind of like in any game, you do have a profile picture. You can click on this little arrow here, and then in here you can actually see your profile name, and you can change your profile name. And then in here you can actually click on this, and you have various different portraits you can pick, or you can just use an avatar that you have. Doesn't really particularly matter. Of course, just like you'd expect, they do have gear. Now, gear in this game is really not even that complicated because it's really just 3 pieces, and then as you upgrade it, you just get more benefits to certain pieces. So, like, they have 1 piece for war, 1 piece for, food production, and 1 piece for training. Like, it's not even that complicated. They've really broken that down to where it's not even, you don't have to spend hundreds of hours trying to understand it. Now, of course, with the Alliance feature, I recommend once you do get into the game through the download link in the description below, you just want to, basically, once you've gotten all that stuff set up, you just go over to here to the Alliance tab, and then what you can do is you can come and join my Alliance. Now, of course, I have my cords in the description, or like here in the video, basically. And so you can kind of take a look at that, and you can actually port over here and come join me. Now, of course, I'm going to do my best to try and help everybody around me, so hopefully we'll kind of see where that goes. I'm hoping for the best anyway. I don't really know what to expect. But again, that's just kind of the gist of it. As far as, like any game, yes, you do have talent, so these kind of work as, like, you can get free resources every 5 hours worth of resources at a 12-hour cooldown, where you can gather up 100% faster, free teleports. They got like a lot of little bit itty-bitty things that are kind of nice that make this game a lot more convenient to play. They do have a VIP system. The VIP system is kind of based on, Like, yeah, you got to have like what is called like a VIP timer. It basically just tacks it on, but it gives you like itty bitty bonuses for like a short period of time. It's kind of useful, but again, you can check that out if you want to. It's my opinion. You know, when you're starting out, you're not going to sweat it. Of course, as far as like a lot of the features and stuff like that, mechanics wise, yeah, there's like a bunch of things that you can do. Like you can buy to your heart's content in this game. As far as like getting packs go, like the very initial packs aren't too bad for like $1 though, because they make it so that like you don't have to pay as much in resources, and they cut down the amount of time you have to work on these buildings and stuff like that. Now you're probably wondering like what the lion throne is. The lion is kind of like this. It kind of equates to like a dragon in mobile royale. You've probably seen this in some other games though, but basically the lion has like different tiers. And so, like, for example, Gentle is giving you, your food gathering and stuff like that. Energetic is for monster hunting. Fierce is when you're defending, and then Cruel is for when you're attacking. You just have to be mindful about while you're going around and upgrading. The Hideout Cave is kind of like your shelter. It's where you hide your troops and stuff. Not a terribly complicated place to figure that all out. The Hall of War is your rally building, so you need to upgrade that if you want to do larger tier rallies. And then an embassy is where you get your troop reinforcements and stuff like that, as well as the amount of helps you can do, and also the amount of time that you can reduce on your actual work that you're doing. So like here, I'm going to go to my research tab real fast, and I'm still going through the research tree in this game, so it does take like a little while to actually get down there, but my recommendation, at least when you're starting out, is what I did is I went through the development tree, and I'll show you that here in a second, but what I did is I went through the development tree a considerable amount from the start, because that's going to give you your construction speed, it's going to increase your hospital capacity, it's where you get your training speed, but most importantly, it's also where you get your research speed. Those are all things that you want to make sure you get right from the get-go so you can save yourself the most you possibly can. The market is just like what you would expect. It's where you dictate how much resources you can trade to other players in your guild. Again, a really helpful thing to upgrade if you're a little behind like I am. I'm still going through micromanaging and upgrading all of my other buildings. Like I still got to upgrade my watchtower, because the watchtower is responsible for all your scouts and also anybody that scouts you for that matter. So you got to be careful. I probably need to upgrade that. I'm just slacking in that department. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, though, that's kind of the gist of all of those buildings. Now, the treasure trial is kind of like where you get your materials, and at least where you can get some materials anyway for your gear. You get a lot of your materials out of monster hunting, but somewhere else you can actually get a chunk of it is through the chapters, and this is just basically what you would expect. It's just a chapter system where you can basically go up and you get like a set number of troops that you got to fight up against, and then you get resources in return. Not a terribly complicated system, but again, it's for the average player. I think you can get into this a lot easier than you can than a lot of other games that are out there right now. Like, the learning curve to this game isn't as bad, and for the people that are just kind of killing time and just want to have fun, I think this is the kind of game to do it in, because where like here, like you can get the War Fortress upgraded, and this is where you build your traps. So like trap wise, catapults are, in case you're wondering, they counter the infantry. I believe cannons are countering cavalry, and then defenders counter range. And I know that because if you just tap on it, it'll tell you. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist with those buildings. What else is something else that I could probably teach you that you probably didn't already know? Well, I guess obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously, to a certain extent, if you're wondering like what my building setup is, this is kind of what I'm going with. I've got like more timber and farms than I do military tents at the moment, only because I need the resources to do all the upgrading. But once I get around to actually having all the upgrades, like the research and all the core components of the game done, that's when you can swap out and start building military tents and then spam your military size and become an ultimate large feat to be reckoned with kind of player. But these are all the things that I think you ought to do, at least when you're starting out in this game. Hopefully you guys will come and join me here on Clash of Empires, and well, needless to say, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.